Hello, I'm Dave Epstein. Welcome to this edition of Growing Wisdom, and I want to talk to you about spring bulbs, one of my favorite flowers. I went over to my friends at Barry's Greenhouses and was looking at some of the bulbs in containers, and I've been doing this for several years now and putting them around the yard. So bulb planting takes place in the fall, and even folks like a grower is going to pot these up in the fall. They'll cold store them, they'll let them come up and bloom early in the spring, and then they'll sell them to folks, and they'll end up in a store where maybe you're buying them. And you might wonder, in the spring, can you plant these bulbs and will they come back? And the answer is 100% yes, as long as you take care of them correctly. So the best bulbs for doing this are going to be hyacinths. We're also going to think about daffodils, narcissus. I'm not such a fan of tulips. Tulips are great in containers, but I don't put them in the ground because I find that they don't come back as well. I want to show you around, and we'll talk a little bit as I show you some of the garden. Let's start with some of these bulbs here. There's tete-a-tete, absolutely gorgeous. Some hyacinths, some more hyacinths. All of those planted several years ago. So were these. Look at how beautiful they look. Now, all of these came from containers. And that's one of the great things. Look at this little area here. All these little tete-a-tete daffodils were in containers. Those were in containers as well. And, you know, I've got another garden over here. These are things that I find at garden centers in the spring. We put them in the ground when we're done enjoying them in the little pots, and then they come back. I mean, look at these little grape hyacinths. They're so beautiful, and they were all in pots, and they come back and they'll spread. So, you know, some folks may not have an opportunity. Those are just hellebore. But, you know, look at the daffodil. You may not have an opportunity to plant in the fall. You know, maybe it's busy. Maybe you didn't order them. Maybe it's too wet or too cold and you don't want to work outside. But if you buy them in containers in the spring, you can definitely plant them in the spring when they're done flowering, and they will come back. I recommend giving them some food as well after they're done flowering, and again, late fall. If you find these at a garden center, they're great to plant. And if you, or your client, if you have a client, you know, you want to put these in the ground, they will come back year after year after year. You can see here, we've got the yellow daffodils. We've also got the white daffodils. And that's the amazing thing about daffodils. They are just so hardy, and they'll definitely come back, even though they're in pots. When you pull them out of the pots, you want to kind of tease the roots a little bit, give them a little bulb food, give them some love. But container bulbs come back year after year. So remember, when you get them, you know, you'll pop them out of the container after they're done flowering. These still have a little ways to go. I tease the roots a little bit. I've even divided them before, and then just put them in the ground, plant them, you know, as you would any bulb, and they will definitely come back just like that. And just like that. Remember, spring flowering bulbs, fantastic to have in the garden. They're going to give you years of pleasure. You can plant them in the fall, as is recommended, but if you find them in containers, you can also plant them in the spring. For Growing Wisdom, I'm Dave Epstein.